Good afternoon. Welcome to First Church. I welcome you this afternoon, even though we gather with great sorrow, with sadness, and with grief. This is not what any of us planned to be doing on the last Saturday of September. It's not where any of us wanted to be, and there's a million other things we would rather be doing than being here grieving for Debbie for this unexpected and untimely loss. I know that it means so much to Deb's family that you're all here, that you are filling this old meeting house. It means so much. And it means so much the many, many ways that you have supported them and touched them and been there for them. It's what we can do when things that are beyond our control happen. We gather together and we take care of one another. In fact, when we were at the graveside just a little while ago at Harmony Grove, we sang the song, "We gather together." That's what we do. We gather together and we take care of one another. It can be difficult to find a place for a death like this. It's impossible to comprehend, to wrap our heads around. But then, we can never really be inside another person's head or inside another person's heart. Only God can be in those places. There is a beautiful Psalm 139, where the psalmist talks about that. The psalmist says, "O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down. You are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me." Deb is in God's full, loving embrace, hemmed in, behind, and before. Like many of you, I have seen obituaries lately, too many for people who have died of opiate overdoses. And many of them say something like this: Julie lost her battle with addiction, or Jeff lost his battle with addiction. Well, Deb had a lifelong battle, a battle with depression, and last Friday, she lost that battle. Over the past few weeks, we've seen the power of a hurricane, actually several hurricanes. We've seen the devastation of an earthquake. And we can understand those forces and the power of those forces. But there are other forces, internal forces, forces that are just as overwhelming and that are equally unstoppable. Depression can be like that. It's not something that can be whisked away with a smile or a cheery disposition, although we know that Debbie tried to do that, and she did it so well. But it just didn't work. It didn't work any more than wishing away a hurricane or an earthquake. Debbie is now free from that awful force. But for us, it will take some work. It'll take some work if we refuse to let this ending be the final word in her life. If we let this overshadow what was a wonderful and good and beautiful and rich life. So today we're going to do this together. And I'm glad you're all here because it's going to take a lot of us, but we're going to do this together. And we'll need some help. We'll need some prayer. And we'll need a lot of singing. So I'm glad you're all here because we're going to need a lot of singing, and we have a lot of singers. St. Augustine said, when we sing, we pray twice. So we're going to do a lot of praying too. And it's going to take a lot of music, and we're going to make a lot of music because music was such a huge part of Deb's life. It helped soothe her spirit, and today it's going to soothe ours. God is with us in our grief. You know, when Jesus heard that his friend Lazarus had died, even though he raised him again, Jesus wept. He wept. And God weeps with us in our grief and in our sorrow. And God is with us in all of our feelings in this moment, whatever those feelings are. There's no feeling that's too powerful or too awful or too overwhelming for God. And the Spirit of God meets us right where we are with whatever we're feeling. So let the feelings come. Your feelings are welcome here. Your feelings are okay. When the tears come, let them come, for it's certainly a time for tears. But when you think of Debbie, full of life, some of the funny, crazy things she did and said, and you feel a smile cross your face, and the tears meet the smile, that's okay. And even if a laugh starts to come up, that's okay. Because that's how we will remember her and celebrate her life. I took several mission trips with Debbie. The last one I took was to Navajo Reservation in Kayenta. When we got there, there was a house that we were supposed to scrape the paint off of. Nobody had bought any scrapers. There was no supplies. Debbie reached down and picked up this flat rock and said, "Let's go," and started scraping the paint with a rock. That's how I'll remember her. And I invite you to remember her like that. I remember one time I had the women's enrichment come up to my house and we went into Dogtown, and after we went to Dogtown, I took them all to the quarry. And it was a beautiful day and the water looked so inviting, and all of a sudden I turned around and there was Debbie, fully clothed, jumped off the cliff into the quarry. That's how I'll be remembering Debbie. Don't be afraid of the tears, for when we go through the tears, when we go through the grief, on the other side is the joy and the laughter. And they're always together, but that's okay. There's a beautiful saying by one of my teachers. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh. And he says it this way: "This body is not me. I am not limited by this body. Birth and death are only doors through which we pass, sacred thresholds on our journey. Birth and death are a game of hide and seek. So laugh with me, hold my hand, let us say goodbye. Say goodbye to meet again." Would you join me in prayer? O God, infinitely beyond us, yet intimately with us, how unfathomable are your ways. We confess that we are children of dust, yet you call us your own. We have not always lived the way we would want to live. Many days have gone by when we have not loved as we ought to love, and the years pass us by too soon. We don't always understand why things happen the way they do, why we have so much pain, but we do know that you are with us through it all. Lord, be gentle with us. Forgive us. Raise us into a newness of life, that we may live life now in all of its fullness and richness and beauty, and that in facing death we might feel your presence with us, that we might find the place you have prepared for us. We now entrust this one we love so much into your loving care through Jesus Christ, the one who overcomes death. Amen. Would you join together in singing hymn number 539 in the black hymnal, "Won't You Let Me Be Your Servant"?
For thousands of years, people have turned to the psalmist for comfort, for hope. They've turned to hang on to what is said in the Psalms as it feels that life is washing them away. So I invite you all to join your voices with those of the ancients and read together the Psalm 23 that's in your bulletin. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And let us pray the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Hello, everyone. Ben and Hillary told me that this reading was a favorite of Deb's. When I die, give what's left of me away. And if you need to cry, then cry for your brother or sister walking beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around someone and give to them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes. You can love me best by letting hands touch bodies, and even by letting go of children who need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away.
When I first heard about Debbie's death, I had this strong feeling that I wanted to talk with her. And when I tried to write down some of my thoughts, they came out in the form of a letter to her. Hillary and Ben have asked me to share this with you today. Dearest Deb, in my heart, you are a shining light, full of strength, determination, loyalty, humor, love, and courage. You showed all these qualities to those you loved and to those who loved you. Your empathy allowed you to know how others were feeling, and your funny bone was easily tickled, especially by your grandson Nat and his special ways. You were increasingly able to share your discouragement and the fact that you were unable to get beyond your depression, yet you soldiered on, always thinking of others and doing all you could think of to save yourself. Perhaps it was in singing that you found the most relief, and we, all your brothers and sisters, loved hearing you and watching you revel in the language of song. We all started crying when you sang. Music touches us all in a different part of our brain and acts as a healing salve to our souls. What a gift music has been to you and to all of us. Heartfelt thanks to your friends in Contamus and in your church choir for their support of you as you created beautiful music together. Music is a language that we siblings understand as well. Where would we all be without it? Sam without his jazz, Joey without her choral groups, Kitty without song weavers, Bill without his appreciative ears. And he used to play the trumpet. Deb, I remember playing some Bach chorales with you on the piano a few years ago, especially the final chorale from the St. John Passion, in which Bach continually moves the harmonic intensity one notch higher. It would make our toes curl up in our shoes and our spirits soar in rising to that intensity while struggling together to play the right notes without breaking the spell. And there were all those times that we bungled through the Thanksgiving hymns at our large family celebrations. You always kept me going with your greater skill at reading piano music, and you were able to dismiss all my wrong notes and whisper to me halfway through the piece what key we were in. So I would remember to play the sharps and flats. You had such bravery in performance. For goodness sakes, you even played your recorder for the Pope in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. And you were able to keep whistling when doing a whistling duet with Brother Sam, improvising the harmony as you carried on in spite of your urge to smile or laugh. Has anyone here ever tried to whistle while laughing? Speaking of bravery, I have always thought how brave you were in the things you took part in on your family vacations. Flying through the air on trampolines, trapeze artistry, zip lining over canyons, rafting down wild rivers, and other things like that. I often felt like a chicken in comparison to you when you showed me pictures of your escapades. I think in the last couple of years, you learned to let some of your friends and family know how you were really feeling deep inside. I know how much we are all missing you right now, and the inevitable guilt that we may all feel because we were unable to make a big enough difference to help you carry on in your life. But we need to remember that we all did what we could to help you. And even in spite of that, we were not able to make the final difference. In the end, the choice about living and dying was yours. As my cousin Clara said, I am so sad to hear that Debbie could not endure another minute of her life when she was depressed. I saw her a couple of times in the last 2 years, and she had such a zest for life and her music. I am sad that for all of us, and especially for Ben and Hillary, and all in their families, Peter, Cricket, Dave, Sky, Sema, Oscar, and Nathaniel. Sad that in the end, Deb, you finally had to let go of your life and leave us. This was the choice you were driven to by your depression. Right now, let's make a promise to each other that we who remain will stay connected, celebrate our blessings together, and be there for each other in troubled times. Our large family remains strong and loving even though we are diminished by our losses. Thanks to so many of you who traveled a distance today to be together with us at this hard time. It makes a big difference, and we are so happy to see you all here. Deb, I am glad that you are not suffering anymore, and I'm trying to dwell on the many ways you showed us how to live. And I hope and pray that someday soon we will find a cure for depression that really works. Meanwhile, I will go on loving you and your lively spirit as long as I live, and missing the happy times we made music together, wrote songs, went on trips, and laughed about some of the absurdities of life while sharing some deep personal feelings along the way. May we all remember the good times to help lift ourselves from the veil of sadness that has come over us. It is a staggering thought that you are no longer among us, and no longer only a phone call or a short drive away. Debbie, blessings to you on your journey. With love always, Kitty.
My husband David and I brought our family up in Hamilton, and Deb's and our paths crossed often enough for a friendly hello at a high school soccer game or a town hall meeting. Deb and I even found ourselves at the same local house parties, albeit she was the guest and I was the server. As I worked for the Hungry Fox for many years, and that was the go-to caterer. It wasn't until Deb moved to Great Neck that our paths literally crossed, and we began to see each other more often. The first time was at Bradley Palmer State Forest when we both were out for a walk on a lovely afternoon. We continue that walk along together, having great conversation. She fell in love with my dog, Scarlet Joy, and the seed of an extraordinary friendship began to take root. Deb and I continued those walks and talks. We kayaked, we practiced yoga, participated in ageless fitness classes. We soul searched at Kripalu Center. We attended concerts and plays. We picked raspberries at Kitty's. Attended a goddess weekend where Deb earned the titles of Freaking Feather and Aphrodite. We participated in drumming circles, and we even tried Tong Ren energy healing. Debbie also recruited me to help tend the Great Neck Triangle, which is where I learned that very fine art of deadheading flowers. We shared grandchildren's stories, and how proud she was of all you guys, Emma, Oscar, Sky, and Nat. She talked about you all the time. She loved you dearly. Deb was also very loving and kind to my 92-year-old mother, Frances. She was actually the person who found the Girdle House in Beverly, where my mother now happily resides. Deb happened to be there playing her recorder, and she called me on the way home and she said, "Hey, I think I found a really nice place for your mom." She often visited my mother and brought along her photo albums and took my mother on many trips and safaris. And I could always count on Deb to step in and pay a nice visit or two to my mother when Dave and I traveled. And my mother will really miss those visits and really miss Deb. And Deb invited me to join her with this church on that mission trip to Monument Valley to work with the Navajo tribe to help them learn how to capture water and into runoffs and into man-made rivulets and down into a man-made reservoir. It was hard work, but a very rewarding experience and lots of fun. Just this time last summer, Deb traveled to Page, Utah with me and Dave and 5 of our oldest and dearest friends, where we rented a 75-foot well-equipped houseboat and floated the Colorado River for 5 days. Deb co-piloted the boat with Freddie and thanked the good Lord for her boating skills. She even knew what to do with all 4 anchors. Our friends fell in love with Deb, and not just for her boating skills. We are all still remembering that trip. It was a trip full of a mishap or two, friendship, beautiful sunrises and sunsets, red rocks and cool, clear waters, cocktails and campfires, fun and shenanigans, and love. Our friends, Freddie, Mary, Nancy, Bud, and Julie, are so blessed for having spent that special time with Deb. Little off the subject here, but are any of you familiar with that goat yoga sign on Route 97 in Topsfield? Well, I keep driving by that, and I was dropping my granddaughter Emiliana home the other day, and I saw a whole bunch of cars there, so I decided to stop in. Now, my husband kept telling me that that stood for greatest of all time yoga, but I knew better, so I stopped in and I went up to the woman at the desk, and she said, "Would you like to join us?" And I said, "I'm not prepared for that today." But she said, "Well, why don't you go up and take a look?" So I walked up the hill, and there was new thrown hay, fresh hay all over the place, and goats and chickens and people practicing yoga. It was a beautiful afternoon. There was sunlight coming down through the trees, and my first thought was, Debbie and I would do this, you know? So if anybody wants to do that, give me a call. So many of you people have reached out to me thanking me for being such a good friend to Deb. I just want you all to know why our friendship came so naturally. We were quite simply kindred spirits, and we spoke of this often. So I looked it up in the Urban Dictionary, and it defines kindred spirits like this: the spirits of two people that make a special bond that has joined them by the means of an experience that has drawn them together on a higher level of consciousness. In our case, it was a search for purpose. We knew each other's strengths and weaknesses well. Just a few weeks ago, Deb told me that she thought I was very brave, and I'm holding on to those words tightly. But in reality, Deb is by far the bravest person I'll ever know. Deb enriched my life in more ways than I'll ever know, but this one is so very important to me. My dad, James Morse, who died September 15th, 2008, was a high school English teacher with a musical talent unmatched by many. He had the most beautiful tenor voice, played the guitar, the banjo, ukulele, and piano, taught guitar lessons, and played out and sang on regular gigs. He could also yodel, and he also was a pretty good whistler. There was always music in my house, of which I took little interest back then. I begrudgingly took piano lessons and played the tenor guitar, but my interests were much more social, and my dad never pushed me. Deb cracked open that musical door for me, and although I'm still just peeking through it, I'm forever grateful. So just a few summers ago, Deb invited me to join her to attend Sam's production of A Ferry Home Companion on Peaks Island, where he and his wife Linda were living. And Sam and Linda were kind enough to put me up for the weekend. The show was fabulous, a sweet island performance with quite a bit of talent. But all the while, Deb and I were noticing a lot of older people walking around the audience carrying ukuleles. And of course, we were very curious. But at the end of the show, all the ukulele people gathered up in front and closed out the evening with some fabulous and familiar knee-slapping tunes. Now, this is no joke. Deb and I turned to each other and said, "We can do this." So, with Deb's keen skills of putting like-minded people together, I'd like to present to you the Ukululus.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I always got a play-by-play of the Contamus chorus, or the concert afterwards, and I think Mom would have been really pleased. You guys sound great. And I've never heard the ukuleles before, so thank you. So the last time I spoke in front of a crowd in Wenham was at my high school graduation 24 years ago. And I inadvertently made the mistake of saying something that got under my mom's skin, and for which she needled me about through the years. So I want to start today by taking this opportunity to set the record straight. Despite what I said in my graduation speech, my mother did not force me to take tuna fish sandwiches to school every day for lunch. In fact, Mom provided a diverse menu of yummy lunches, which often included iced tea juice boxes and double stuffed Oreos. So there you go, Mom. I hope that clears the air. I want to talk about 3 aspects of Mom that have struck me over these past 2 weeks as we've been going through Mom's Place and also receiving so many wonderful, loving messages of support. Music was a central component of Mom's life. No surprise to anyone in this room, I'm sure. There was music everywhere, and still is music everywhere, in Mom's home and in her car. Thick scores of major works, The Creation, The Seasons, St. Matthew's Passion, and Belshazzar's Feast. There are compilations of show tunes, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Gershwin, Cole Porter. There's ukulele music, there's recorder music, and there's loose sheets of choral and piano music just everywhere in her house. Music was the language that spoke directly to Mom's soul, and it gave her such joy to share in music with her friends and family, and even with strangers. Music has been an important part of my life, and I'm grateful that Mom introduced and encouraged me to get involved and to stay involved in music. I might not have made it through these last 2 weeks without Rudder and Foray. Mom and I shared a tendency to whistle. That's gone on to the next generation. And we would often find ourselves whistling in spontaneous harmony, probably a Sousa march or a Harvard fight song, something inspiring, while cleaning up after dinner or driving in the car. Mom often gave us gifts as music. One year she gave me CDs of the major orchestral works that she loved and felt that I needed to have in my collection. The complete Brahms symphonies by von Karajan, Bach's orchestral suites, Robert Shaw conducting the Bach B minor Mass. And one year, she gave me a book that has now become worn and creased with use, 100 Carols for Choirs, edited by David Wilcox and John Rudder. I'm glad I didn't sing today. For many Americans, the day after Thanksgiving marks the beginning of the holiday shopping season, Black Friday. But for me, and I think the rest of our family, this is the time to make our famous rum punch and to start listening to the King's College Choir perform their Festival of Lessons and Carols. This music, once in Royal David City, Personet Hodie, in Dulce Jubilo, is the best part of Christmas for me. Recently, my family has been blessed to share Christmas Eve with friends who end their party around the piano, with kids pulling out their instruments and everyone belting out holiday songs. The past few years, Mom and I have attempted to sing a duet of In the Bleak Midwinter, a favorite for both of us. I will always think of Mom when these Christmas carols are played, and in particular when that last verse arrives and the sopranos add in a soaring descant. Even better that Mom somehow managed to become a soprano in recent years. Something else that we've found as we explore Mom's condo is a nearly continuous stream of notes and written thoughts about her decades-long battle with depression and anxiety. Tucked away in folders and bedside tables, in desk drawers, and buried in piles of music, are notes documenting her mood and feelings in response to an evolving regimen of medications, counseling, and other therapies called upon to help treat her illness. Mom worked so hard to battle depression, and these notes show the daily effort she put in over 30 years to understand, analyze, and treat the disease. We are grateful that she found remarkably compassionate professional help over these past few years. But still, Mom often worried that she was a burden, that she was somehow weaker than others because of these chemical imbalances in her brain. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Mom showed remarkable courage in fighting this disease over so much of her life. She was ever generous with her energy and her spirit, all while having to expend so much energy and effort to corral her own emotions. Mom had taped a quotation onto the upper corner of her laptop. It reads, "The architect of your destiny is yourself." I am so proud of Mom for fighting the good fight, for facing a debilitating disease with strength and grace, and for having the courage to take control of her life. A third item that can be found all over Mom's condo are turtles. As many of you probably know, Mom was the imperial turtle, demonstrated both through a collection of business cards that she had printed and distributed, and through her use of impturt as an email address. But you might not know how she came to hold such a revered position. It turns out that Mom first joined the International Association of Turtles in 1963 as a high school freshman, inducted by a friend of hers, Charlie McCormick of South Carolina, who was then a student at Phillips Exeter. Mom kept her membership card in her wallet for 30 years. That tells you something about Mom. Fast forward to 1990, when Mom and Hillary were part of a Hamilton-Wenham High School choral trip to the Soviet Union. During one of the bus rides, two students, Dave Hanna and Gabe Frasca, approached Mom and asked her if she was a turtle, upon which she promptly gave the required reply, "You bet your sweet ass I am." She followed that up by pulling out her membership card from 1963. Dave and Gabe were, I'm sure, dumbfounded and impressed by this very cool Mom. After the trip, Mom had new membership cards printed, appointing herself as the Imperial Turtle, the head of the organization, and she distributed these to friends, as well as friends of Hillary and me, who could solve the riddles required for membership. Upon hearing of Mom's death, friends of mine posted pictures of their turtle cards from high school. This story tells you so much about Mom. She had a great sense of humor. She was funny and silly. And she was always coming up with clever lyrics for birthday songs or anniversary celebrations. She also made people feel appreciated and comfortable, and she was a great listener. She gathered people together for music and for fun. One comment we've heard from many people over the past 2 weeks is that Mom got them to join groups, some group or committee or organization. She was a welcoming, comforting force, and she drew you in with her warmth. Mom was an excellent skier and also an impressive water skier. Water skiing is a favorite pastime in our family, and when Mom water skied, she would always throw up one arm in what we now call the granny wave. And you can see a picture of that at the reception later. My kids are now becoming pretty talented water skiers, and they have taken up the habit of doing the granny wave every time we circle the lake. Granny will be sorely missed by her grandchildren. So, in honor of Mom, the Imperial Turtle, today we are inducting everyone in this room into the International Association of Turtles. We have had new cards made, all signed by Mom, and I hope that you will take one from the bowl in the reception hall. Or if there's enough, take two and induct someone else in Mom's memory. Now, in order to become a member, you have to solve 4 riddles, written on the back of each card. These riddles have some seemingly salacious answers that shouldn't be spoken in church. But the correct answer is actually quite benign. I will help you with the first. What is it that a man can do standing up, a woman sitting down, and a dog on 3 legs? I know Mike doesn't know the answer. That's right, shake hands. Mom, There's 3 others, so you got your hands full. Mom, and I don't know if we haven't said this, but part of Mom is in the cookie jar right here. So sort of her ashes are in the cookie jar. So she's with us today. Mom, we love you so much, and we miss you terribly. I hope that you know how many lives you touched so deeply, and I hope that you have found peace.
Well, Deb and I go way back to the beginning of both of us. We were little kids together, and we spent every summer in Marion together. goofing around, playing circuses with Sam, and all kinds of upside-down stuff, and sailing. So Hillary asked me to read this poem, and of course, I said yes, and I'm very glad that you asked me. This is Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
When my mom visited me in Vermont after the birth of my daughter Sky, she brought a gift, a small wooden block painted with the saying, "A daughter is a little girl who grows up to be a friend." At the time, I was completely hormonal and burst into tears when I read it. But I knew that it hadn't taken until adulthood for me to forge a friendship with my mom. She was my best friend from the beginning. I was lucky enough to have a mother who was a full-time homemaker, and she was as hands-on as they come. Only 23 when she had me and 26 when Ben came along. Mom was the kind of parent who played with us and enjoyed being silly with her kids. She came of age in a generation when women were stepping out of traditional gender roles, and while Mom chose to be a wife and mother first and foremost, she was no shrinking violet when it came to women's rights. I've been told that when I was a little kid sitting in the back seat of the car, I would raise my fist and shout, "Right on, sister," with my mom's coaching. Mom found her political voice through volunteering with the Hamilton Wenham League of Women Voters. At one point, she traveled to Detroit with a group of other women to attend a league conference. She returned with the usual swag, which included a T-shirt that said, "A woman's place is in the House and the Senate." To this day, I love that slogan. Mom was the kind of person who would drop everything when her kids needed her, even as adults. When I was in my early 30s, I had surgery to correct an open bite. It involved having my jaw broken and reset, and then spending 2 weeks with my jaw wired shut. I stayed with my parents during the recuperation, and I can remember arriving at their house the night before the surgery. Mom jokingly served steak, knowing that a liquid diet was coming my way. In the days following my jaw surgery, she tried at one point to put spaghetti in a blender. It came out lumpy and unappetizing, but Mom was never afraid to try new solutions. Another evening, when my wired jaw was feeling especially sore, Mom handed me a gin and tonic with a grin and said, "Clear liquids, just what the doctor ordered." Mom drew people to her and had a knack for putting those around her at ease. She was quick to dispense with formalities and had a warmth that shined through, especially when she sang. When attending a concert, it was easy to pick out Debbie Twining. She would be one of the short sopranos in the front row. She would be looking up at the conductor and not down at her music, and she would be smiling broadly as she sang out with confidence and joy. Mom got exasperated with singers whose demeanor was solemn and stiff throughout a concert. She knew that audience members engaged with the music not only by listening, but also by watching, and she never let her audience down. I will always treasure my memory of joining Mom for a week at the Berkshire Choral Festival in 2006. The concert we performed at the end of the week felt transcendental, and I got to share that experience with her. Mom modeled for me the importance of cultivating friendships throughout life. She may have been a stay-at-home mom, but she sure didn't stay at home much. Mom was forever hosting meetings at our house, joining or starting groups, and planning family outings with her friends and their families. Once Ben and I got a little older and she had more free time, Mom loved to do things with Quilt Group, host ladies' weekends at Tricky Pond, and take road trips with her buddies and her sisters. In fact, I can remember feeling vaguely annoyed when I called home from college that my mother was not pining for me. Her faith and friendship extended well beyond her own group of friends. During one of my first weekends at college, when there was a keg party in my dorm and students were acting wild and crazy, I called Mom to tell her how homesick I felt. She listened sympathetically, but pointed out that having a beer wouldn't kill me, and that even the football players and other jocks a few floors down probably had another side to them. I don't recall that I took her advice to join the party, but Mom had a way of approaching challenging situations with good cheer and pragmatism. When Mom was hospitalized for her depression several years ago, many friends and families visited her at McLean. I think Mom felt a little self-conscious about her surroundings, but her friend Jane, who enjoys celebrating her Irish heritage, found just the thing to break the ice, a sign that said, "I see little green men." Mom loved that. During her road back to wellness, Mom was urged by various doctors and therapists to share her feelings more openly, to let people in. It did not come easy, this transparency, but she worked at it. Mom reached out to family and friends. She did not hide that she struggled with depression and anxiety. She told people in her various circles that she'd spent time in a psychiatric hospital, and she talked about medication and ECT without embarrassment. She shared her low feelings with me and Ben, with her siblings, and with good friends. Mom and I found a way to communicate about these feelings that felt more infused with acceptance and love than judgment and fear. When she would periodically fret about being a burden, I would tell her that this is how families take care of each other, and I meant it. I hope she could hear it. There is a passage in the book, Eat, Pray, Love, a favorite read for both of us, that has stayed with me. The author, Elizabeth Gilbert, is going through a very difficult period in her life, and one night she finds herself weeping inconsolably. When she finds herself weeping inconsolably, she experiences what she believes is the voice of God. This voice says, "There's nothing you can ever do to lose my love. I will protect you until you die, and after your death, I will protect you still. I am stronger than depression, and I am braver than loneliness, and nothing will ever exhaust me." This is what I hope for my mom, that she be surrounded by an inexhaustible, ever-renewing love in front of which depression dare not show its face. Mom celebrated her 50th reunion at Milton Academy in 2016. The school created a book with photos and remembrances from members of the class of 1966. Mom concluded her short piece with these words: "As I anticipate the rest of my life, I look forward to approaching everything with a directness that hasn't always been there. No more beating about the bush and shoulds and pleasing others. Trust my values and live by them." Mom, I will spend the rest of my life missing you, but I am grateful that you were on this earth for 68 years. Thank you for loving me and Ben so fiercely, for showing us how to live with strength and purpose and integrity. Thank you for being so proud of your grandchildren and eager to fill the role of Granny for Sema, Oscar, Sky, and Nathaniel. I have found in the past 2 weeks that when I talk about you and share memories with family and friends, you come back to me a little. I will work to sustain the connections that you tended with such care. Mom, look at everyone in this church, all gathered for you. We love you and always will.
Let us join our hearts in prayer. O Lord, support us all the day long until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes and our work is done. Then in thy mercy, grant us safe lodging, a holy rest, and peace at the last.
Eternal God, who breathed into lifeless dust and brought us forth in your image, we return to the earth, your child, Debra Saltonstall Twining, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, commending her in the sure and certain hope of the resurrection to life eternal, through Jesus Christ sending her forth on a new morning. Amen.
Now may the grace of courage, gaiety, and the quiet mind be with us all. And may the blessing of God always be upon us.
May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, both now and forever.